From the Beaver County Auto Studios, hi, I'm Dan Kingerski. It's a Pittsburgh Hockey Now, Pittsburgh Sports Live chat. So, it's a learning experience for us at Pittsburgh Hockey Now every single day. But here we are. And I know a lot of you are just getting to it because we didn't have the live channel set up where you could be waiting and ready. Never mind. Let's get into the Tom Wilson stuff. We'll get into the Marcus Pettersson stuff. We'll get into the win last night. And I want to get into the Patrick Hornquist thing. I want to start with the Hornquist stuff because I think this is maybe, for my money, I know a lot of you want to talk about the trades and, trade potentials. Certainly, we dropped a little bombshell isn't the right word, but we're connecting some dots on PittsburghHockeyNow.com with Bill Guerin scouting the Islanders and Winnipeg last night, and you have to assume he wasn't there to check out the Islanders. At the same time, Winnipeg has been scouting the Penguins, so I want to get into that too. And just be patient. We'll get to the trade stuff. I know that's what everyone wants to really put their teeth into, but Patrick Hornquist and his evolution inside the Penguins team structure, to me, is very interesting. Because it's not like Patrick Hornquist has changed or become a grandfatherly figure, kind of the old man leader. No, that's not what's been happening. What you've been seeing with Hornquist, we've been publishing every time he's essentially spoke over the last month. He was the guy that stood in the middle of the locker room a few weeks ago in the middle of that dreadful 10-game slide and said it's going to turn around on one shift. It's going to happen this next game. And then went out and scored a goal. But the Penguins lost. So he did it again prior to the Ottawa game. This season's going to turn around on one shift. Went out and scored a goal. And finally, the Penguins' wheels have begun to turn. But there it was last night. The Penguins on the verge of giving it away again, losing a 3-goal lead to Colorado. And, if they lose that game tonight, the storm clouds would have gathered quickly, and I think they knew it. So we've got the video of Patrick Hornquist in the Penguins locker room. And I want to get to that because it's only a minute, so it's not going to take up too much of our chat time. You can kind of see, he believes it, and he's beginning to will his teammates along for the ride. And I got a story, some context after we check out the video here.
How do you feel after being able to score a hat trick, not only and just to get the team the win tonight?
Yeah, I think our third period was actually really, really good, and our first too. So, and just flush out that second period, but we come out big in the third, and that's what usually wins your game, and that's what happened here tonight.
How tense did things get when they came back to tie it up, though, in the second period?
They got all the momentum in the second period. It felt like they got every shift down there. They got the momentum. We couldn't really stop the bleeding, but then, you know what? We have a good group of guys in here, and I think this is the turning point of our season. It's a great third period, and just keep building every single day from this day on, and we'll be fine.
Yeah, that power play goal. I mean, you guys have had some bad luck even tonight with the shorthanded goal, goal last game. I mean, what was the mentality for you guys going out there, and how good did it feel to get a goal here today?
Yeah, they felt great. Our power play hasn't been good lately, and we just have to simplify the game. We've been together for so long, and we've been successful, so we know what do what you're good at, and make sure you support your teammates out there, and always, don't go to your spot, support the puck, and then when things open up, make sure we take the shot and then crash the net.
How did it feel to get a hat trick on hat night?
Yeah, obviously it's a good night to get a hat trick, but big third period from us, and build from that.
What's that feeling like when you're? I mean, that's 3 goals in like less than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Fastest one in history.
Yeah. Do you feel like anything you shot would have gone in by the end of it?
You know what? The two last ones, they were lucky ones. So it's just you have one of those days sometimes when the puck is just coming right on your stick and you don't think you shoot, and if you don't know where they're going, I don't think the goalie knows either. So thank you guys.
All right. Actually, I can't hear it here in the studio. I trust that you could. That sort of force, that almost, this is a big comparison, and take it with a little bit of salt, but not too much. That unyielding optimism backed up by strength is just a bit of what Badger Bob Johnson brought to the Penguins. Forcing others to believe and to do and to be the better version of themselves. And I think Hornqvist, as the core gets older and smaller, Hornqvist is filling a larger leadership role in that Penguins room. I've written about this, and I've referenced the writing of it. One of my favorite pieces that I ever wrote, and unfortunately it's no longer available, it might be in some online archive, back before we were Pittsburgh Hockey Now, actually, January 1st, 2016. The Penguins had not had a come-from-behind win in a season and a half. But on New Year's Eve, I guess 2015, in Detroit, the Penguins spotted the Red Wings a 2-0 lead. And I hope, Josh won't get mad if I reference him. Josh, Yowie, and I were sitting in the Detroit press box, very small. It's essentially like a bleacher. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and we both kind of said, this could get ugly. The Penguins came from behind to win that game. That was very early in Mike Sullivan's tenure. And I was just so struck by the postgame, the ebullience of the Penguins locker room. It was like somebody had taken a sledgehammer to the cage that they had been in. And Patrick Hornqvist with the big black eye, because he took a beating that night. Big black eye, big smile. Stood literally in the dead center of the locker room and held court for all of the reporters while the guys got ready for their New Year's Eve party. And you could hear the shouts, and they were yelling back and forth to each other while Hornqvist did his media duties. And there was just a ring of something special. And actually, I wrote that on January 1, 16, that there was just something about that moment. And Hornqvist brings that energy and that intense optimism to it. And you saw that last night. His third goal was, I think, by far the most, what's the right word? I think the most important for the Penguins. And here you take a look. I can't get closed captioned off on the iPad where I make these little videos. So you have to look over that. There is Evgeny Malkin forechecking for all he was worth. You can kind of see on the left side of the screen there, that's Tanner Pearson sealing off the wall. Now what came next was Patrick Hornqvist grabbing that loose puck after Malkin created the turnover from Ian Cole. That's when the Penguins are playing well, when they're just getting after teams. Straight lines. Straight line in, straight line back. Puck support, simple game. There's no great shakes to it anymore. There's no complicated schemes for the Penguins right now because they're talented. They're better than most of their opponents. It's when they try to look better than their opponents is when they get in trouble. Let me add some screen flair for you. I wanted to get to one of the questions here because this is a live Penguins chat, not me babbling for an hour. Ellen asked, listening to the game last night, she has a local NHL TV blackout. Same difference, right? Do you think the Pens are now closer to gaining a bit of consistency and a smidgen of swagger. Yes, I do. It can be undone quickly. This is still a bit of a fragile team because they haven't embraced their new identity. And I've been harping on this. In a month, when everyone else is talking about the same thing, you can sound smart and say, I've been saying the same thing. Because I've been telling you for a good while. The Penguins' new identity is no longer a speed team. They're not a creative team. They can win with blunt force trauma. Get the puck in deep, play dirty in the dirty zones. Maybe play dirty has a negative connotation. Play a gritty, greasy, strong style. And with their talent, then that overrides. And it's right there for their taking. And I think they recognize that, and then they reward themselves for recognizing that with pretty plays. And then when they make those pretty plays is when they get in trouble. But last night, Colorado just turned it on them in the second period, and they were deer in the headlights. That's the problem. That's why I can't say that they have their swagger back, because they could not stop the bleeding. Hornquist, as you mentioned, or maybe it was DeSmith last night. I've got Casey DeSmith video, too. I asked him about the breakaways and what he's changing. We can get into that later. But until, or I should say, what the Penguins really did well in their Stanley Cup years was stop the bleeding. They haven't figured that out yet. They haven't been able to regroup, lock the other team down for a few minutes, take a breath, and then turn it back on the other team. They haven't been able to do that yet because that angst is still with them, Ellen. And when that angst is there, when that doubt is there, it does creep into your game. You start trying to do too much. You start gripping the stick too tightly. I think it's fading. I think they're realizing their potential. A change or two might not hurt this team. Also, Casey DeSmith was pretty good last night. And it helps when your goaltender makes the saves he should, and then a couple others. That's been DeSmith's bugaboo, I think. He's made every save he's supposed to make. But it's that extra save. Last night he made the extra save, and that really helped the Penguins. Let's see here. By the way, Ellen, blackout, I would never advocate anything illegal. I do recommend, however, a VPN for security purposes. And a VPN often, for security purposes only, will mask your location. That would be wrong, of course, to use that for any nefarious means. But I'm saying for security purposes, a VPN can be a few bucks a month and, make sure your computer is secure. All right. Chris, can the Pens truly build on last night's win and go on a winning streak? Do you have faith in Murray bouncing back to be a number one goalie again? Chris, I'll tell you straight up, never ask me a question about faith, only because I will extrapolate what I've seen and what I know to be true to the best probability that I can. Faith is for you. Faith is for fans who get to live and die and emotionally connect with the team. That's just not ever going to be what I do. I'll be the cold water. I'll be the hot water. I'll be the cooling saucer. I almost went on a Bob Dylan or a Tom Petty sort of rant. But I'll be the guy who brings you truth as I see it. I do think Matt Murray can rebound. I don't think his problem was entirely physical. And because of that, I think when his head game gets right again, when he gets physically right again, I think he'll need a break or two. I think, I asked him a couple weeks ago about if there's one moment that turns things around. And he said he didn't believe in moments. I do believe in that lightning rod moment, that lightning in a bottle, that that capture, when you make a big save and you just, and suddenly you forget about everything that's behind you. And you can't wait for that next moment. And I think singular moments do that for you. Look, it can happen slowly over the course of time, too. It can do that. But sometimes that one big, and I think Matt Murray needs that one big moment, that big save, and build on that for a couple other big saves. And I think he needs his teammate or his teammates to grab him and say, that's Matt Murray. And I think it cascades from there. Goaltenders can be their own worst critic because it's such an isolated position. So can he? Yes. Will he? We'll both watch, wait, and see. You'll forgive me. Kaique? Is it Caique? You can tell me how to pronounce your name in the chat there. Do you think it's necessary for another big trade? Feels like we should keep our first-round pick for this year's draft. Working backwards, yes, I think the Penguins have to keep their first-round pick. There's just not enough stock coming, and the Penguins are too old to not begin replenishing. But a big trade, I think the Penguins could benefit from a bit more balance on their blue line. I don't know if that might be a big trade. But I think maybe a middle trade. I don't think they can nibble around the edges, but I also think they need a significant piece on the blue line. Although I'll tell you what, I really, really, really like Marcus Pettersson. Jim Rutherford called him a Brian Dumoulin type, and I think there's more to it. I think there's a lot more, and you saw a lot of that last night. If you haven't, check out the Marcus Pettersson video breakdown that I did yesterday morning on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Here's just one little still from that. Pettersson is the defenseman nearest us on the blue line right here. This still from that article I did yesterday, he recognized what you can't see, and this is against Tampa Bay. And there are two Lightning players on the blue line there. He recognized it was 2-on-2 with Lightning support coming. And he quickly jumped over great gap control to isolate the play on the wall. This is two rookie defensemen playing against Steve Stamkos. They nullified the rush with numbers by Tampa Bay, and this play turned into just a weak shot. That was incredibly impressive. I in the film study that I did on PHN, I came away just very impressed with Pettersson. He was good last night, too. His first passes are crisp isn't the right word because he can take something off. He's very good at just kind of laying the puck right there for a forward to grab and go. And he's very good at knowing when to make that cross-ice pass and when to go D to D and when to just make the short little up pass and let the forwards do their work. He really has a great hockey IQ. So, by the way, great trade to get that for Daniel Sprong. In terms of analysis, analytical thinking, Pettersson has as many points in as many games as Daniel Sprong, and he's a defenseman. Just let that sink in for a second. And spare me the fourth line malarkey. Dominic Simone, Brian Rust, Connor Sherry, Jake Gensel all graduated from third, fourth line duty to get top line duty. Just because Sprong didn't graduate didn't mean that somebody was holding him back intentionally. The Penguins got great value for that, but still, they've got a plethora now. They've only got really one right-hander in their top six. So they've got two left-handers playing the right side. They've got Chad Ruedel in the press box. He's their second right-hander until February. And you have to think it'll be till March before Justin Schultz is back and competent. And maybe I'm making too much of the right-handed stuff. I think it's important. Level 6.5 of 10? Yeah, some days I think it's level 7. Penguins might tell me it's level 4. Take it for what it's worth. Okay, let's see here. Nick said Murray needs a veteran goalie behind him. What everybody forgets is when he was on his game, Fleury was in his ear. I don't know. You know, I think Jimmy Howard would be a great get. As TSN reported, the Penguins are believed to have been or are interested. And as Pittsburgh Hockey Now reported last night, that the Red Wings were scouting the Penguins last night. Or scouting the Avalanche, one of the two, right? Although they just played, so logic would tell you they were there to scout the Penguins. I think insurance would be helpful. But Casey DeSmith just keeps stopping the puck, doesn't he? Every time you're ready to say the Penguins absolutely need a veteran goalie, DeSmith turns in a really good performance, and he was really good last night. So I don't know. I honestly don't. I think in that position, depending, obviously everything depends on price, right? I think I would pull the trigger if I could on a guy like Jimmy Howard, a veteran who can win playoff games. But it won't be the end of the world, I don't think, if they don't do that. In terms of shopping list, I would put the veteran goalie second or third on the list. Chris asks, do I see Rust as being traded? I think Brian Rust is a good hockey player who probably is dealing with his contract in the same way that Connor Sherry dealt with it. This will be like the fourth time I name drop myself or my own website in this chat, and I apologize if it comes off a little crass. But I had a really good conversation with Connor Sherry early March last year, and he kind of came clean on the fact that his contract changed his preparation, changed his mindset a bit, and he felt pressure to perform to that top 6 level that he felt he was being paid as or that he should have been. And the game, he wasn't feeling the game, he was trying to be the game sort of thing. I can't say for certain that's what is happening to Brian Rust, but one could conclude that's a good possibility. Will he be traded? I just don't know. Could he be? If another team valued his speed and dangled a piece that would make the Penguins better, of course, you do that 10 of 10 times. For everybody not named Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang. If somebody will make you better, you do the deal. So from that standpoint, anything I say is a little bit in that context. I think a team like, well, no, we won't go into that. Let's maybe hit that Winnipeg stuff, right? Because last night we know that Bill Guerin was in New York scouting the Winnipeg Jets. Now, here's what we know. Let me pull up Pittsburgh Hockey Now here. Here's what we know over the last 6 to 8 months. Just facts here. That leading up to the trade deadline in February, the Penguins and Winnipeg especially, was scouting the Penguins. We know that Winnipeg thought they had Derek Brassard in their hand. They were the front runner. They thought it was all but a done deal, or they were getting very close. Until Vegas realized that Winnipeg was close to getting Brassard and stepped in to kind of wreck the process for Kevin Cheveldayoff I always call Tim Cheveldae was the goaltender for the Red Wings. Kevin Cheveldae, GM of the Winnipeg Jets. And Vegas kind of wrecked the process for them specifically so that Vegas would not face Derek Brassard in the Western Conference Final. So we know those things. We also know that Winnipeg's second-line center is Brian Little. I would certainly put Derek Brassard a half step ahead of Brian Little. Although Little's having a good year this year, Brassard is a legit number 2, and Little's always been a tweener 2. Prone to hot streaks and very cold streaks. He could very easily be a very good number 3 center behind Derek Brassard, right? So, where am I? There I am. So those are the things we know. We know that Bill Guerin was taking a look at the Jets last night while the Jets took a look at the Penguins. There's where the facts end. So you're free to extrapolate those however you choose. We did speak with some industry sources. And by industry sources, people very close to the Jets, but not necessarily team employees. And I think that's probably as far as I can go. Obviously, people we trust. And the word from a pair of sources last night was indeed that they kind of tamped down any immediacy or any fire that anything might be imminent between the Jets and the Pens. But what they both said was that because Winnipeg is decimated on defense, they could use some help. They could also use some upgrades. And they could use a second-line center. Now, again, extrapolate those for whatever they're worth. I tend to think, because I can't discount our competition reporting on Sunday that the Penguins were, quote, fed up with Derek Brassard. We haven't received that kind of communication from any of our sources with the Penguins, but I don't discount a good reporter putting out a story like that. So take it for what it's all worth. If the Penguins were to put a guy like Brassard on the market, that kind of thing moves quickly. That's not something that I think the Penguins would let dangle until February, especially given the up and down nature of the Penguins this year. They don't need any more distractions. Let me jump back here onto Facebook. Ellen, I guess, made a bit of a note about Sprong. She figured out what bothered her about Daniel Sprong's interviews. He never seemed aware of how much he still had to learn. A far cry from other young players coming into the Penguin system. Ellen, have we had a beer before? I don't know if I've ever publicly said that. I probably have offhandedly, but I certainly have alluded to things like that, and that's very astute of you. You are on the right track. By the way, what do you all think of this grandpa sweater? This is like my I'm cold, it's snowing outside sweater. It's ripped. it's pilling. It is falling apart. But darn if it's not comfortable. Let's see what else we've got here. Brassard does come across as a little fed up with not having consistent line mates, though, in his last few interviews. Yeah, he hasn't hidden the fact that he doesn't expect to finish the game with his line mates, does he? He hasn't shied away from that. Derek is an intense guy. I gravitate to him whenever he's speaking in the locker room, or, I'm able to go over and steal a couple minutes. I gravitate towards him. Maybe it's birds of a feather. I don't know, but I enjoy when he's talking hockey because you're going to get a straight shot Take it for what it's worth again. Let's see what else I want to get to here. So I had a bunch of notes that I wanted to let's talk about the Penguins building on last night's 6-3 win. I guess we've touched on Hornquist, but overall, there is something absolutely pressing with the Penguins. They have enough talent to win hockey games right now. And Mike Sullivan can call it swagger or confidence. But I want you to notice something. When the Penguins' second line, when Evgeny Malkin is on point, when he's playing the Penguins game, the Penguins do very well. When Malkin tries to do too much, the Penguins have a problem because, for whatever reason, when Malkin goes too far off the tracks, the team follows. So often, it's a big Malkin turnover. And he hasn't had a lot of those this year, but he's made them count. Or he's passed up a shot in a big moment and led to that globetrotter hockey. And it's almost like a dog whistle to the rest of the team. When he goes off script, they follow. Last night, Hornquist gets the power play goal. Okay, the Penguins' power play has scored a few goals in their time. But then the Penguins pressed Colorado and got that turnover. Hornquist's second goal, he called it lucky, as you saw on the video. I don't think it was so lucky so much as shoot the puck. It was simple. There wasn't a play to be made, and so he fired it on net. It deflects off a defenseman, skips off the ice. That's a tough save, that's a tougher than you think save for a goaltender. The puck is kind of fluttering. It's also got pace. You're not quite sure how it's going to skip off the ice, where it's going to go. Is it going to hit the ice and go low? Is it going to come up high? Especially in a third period in Pittsburgh, when the ice is Pittsburgh ice. And then the third goal, that second line, again, pressured the Avalanche. You have to wonder if maybe someone on the Penguins bench had a little bit of a smirk on the inside when they made Ian Cole cough the puck up twice. You maybe wonder just a little bit, huh? That's what happened. Malkin pressured Ian Cole, who had no outlet. Cole perhaps should have just wrapped the puck hard around the boards and tried to get in position. Instead, he tried to throw it essentially behind him, and Patrick Hornquist picked up the mail, as Mike Lang would say. Lots of chat here today. Great, love it. Keep it coming, kids. Oh, Kayik. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's see where else here. Okay, they're talking. You're all talking amongst yourselves. Appreciate that. I will stay out of it. But what the Penguins have to do to build on last night, and I'll use the term. Sullivan has used it a couple times. I stole it from him, but he hasn't used it so much lately, and that's the 3 sticks rule. When the Penguins are getting back in their own zone and surrounding the puck with 3 sticks, when they're rushing up ice, close together, 3 sticks supporting each other. And in the offensive zone, 3 sticks. 3 sticks around the puck battle, 3 sticks available. When they've got that, when they're playing that game and not trying to individually out-talent the other team, the Penguins are very good. Very, very good. There aren't many teams in the league that can match the Penguins' size, their talent, their offensive creativity, their finish, their experience. And the Penguins can still skate. It's not like the Penguins are slow. So when you put all of those factors together, the Penguins still have a chance to be very good. They have to recognize that. They have to embrace that their days of playing like the Colorado Avalanche play. Bit of that high-wire offensive act, you know? The Penguins have to recognize that they're 31 years old, 32 years old, 30. And they're just not going to play with the kids anymore. But they can smack down the kids. That's what they have to realize. When they begin doing that, when they begin physically asserting themselves, you're going to see the Penguins take off. Absolutely. I have little doubt in my mind. And when the five-man unit begins doing that, you're going to see a lot less pressure on the goaltenders. And the goaltenders are going to look a whole lot better, magically, miraculously, overnight. We'll see. We'll truly see, because to this point, they haven't been able to string games together where they've done it. That 4-game road trip notwithstanding. And that always gets an asterisk because, by the way, isn't it? I've never. It's an asterisk or asterisks. Forgive me. That 4-game trip gets the squirrely thing because when you go out west in early November, the intensity is just different. And the opponents don't play you in the same way. So I think the Penguins feasted on that. Now, there's two things I want to talk about now that Daniel Sprong is no longer a Penguin. We no longer have that lightning rod that just draws all of the flies to have that fight every day. Jack Johnson, Derek Brassard. Derek Brassard has been playing very well. 2.5 games with Phil Kessel doesn't erase that. I want you to watch Phil Kessel for a while. I want you to come to your own conclusions. Last night, the Phil Kessel, who got a couple shifts at the end of the first period with Evgeny Malkin, was not the Phil Kessel who played most of that period and then rejoined Derek Brassard in the second period. Take it for what it's worth. Kessel is playing well with Zach Aston Reese. Derek Brassard is playing well with Zach Aston Reese. Phil Kessel and Derek Brassard are not playing well with each other. What I have seen, and I want to choose my words carefully because I know you all defend Phil Kessel almost to the death, as if he's your own child. And anything any media person says is trying to run Phil out of town. So trying not to muddy that water, I want you just to watch and see if you see the same things I'm seeing in that front. And that's where we're going to leave it on that. Derek Brassard had the goal last night. Jack Johnson is a very good defender in his own zone. I thought the Pettersson-Johnson pairing was very good on 160 feet of the ice. That last 40 feet, though, boy, Jack Johnson, he does treat the puck like a hand grenade at the blue line a bit, doesn't he? That is maybe the shortcoming of his game that a lot of you see. You all expect every Penguins defenseman to be an offensive guy. And so when a defenseman isn't great with the puck, you assume he's not as good as other defensemen. Just some homework, kids. While you're watching Kessel, also watch Jack Johnson on the other 150 feet of the ice surface. Watch the little things he does. His gap control, now that he's getting more comfortable with the Penguins, is improving with that confidence. And he and Patterson last night, both were pretty good. I really liked what I saw there. But if you tell me Jack Johnson sucks, I know that you're not watching the hockey game. Let me rephrase that. I know that you're coming from an emotional conclusion you're looking to justify. And hey, that's every right to do so. But just take a peek at the other stuff. Same with Derek Brassard. Look at how many plays the third line makes with Derek Brassard. How many puck battles they win. How many times they have the controlled zone entry. Look at all of the extra things. I don't think a line with Brassard, Zach Aston Reese, and maybe Phil Kessel, who isn't happy to be there, is going to score a lot of goals. I think the biggest reason, and I guess we can dive into that, Kessel is really enjoying his playmaker status with Evgeny Malkin. Derek Brassard is a playmaker. And I think there's maybe a competition to make plays going on there. Whereas Brassard should make Kessel the pure shooter that he was. I think the Penguins would love to see that. Love to see Derek Brassard and Phil Kessel race up the ice. Brassard feed 81, who rips that one-footed wrist shot from the right wing dot. I think the Penguins would love to see that, but they haven't seen that in quite a while. What other good stuff do I have here? Just a lot of things we couldn't get to. Just lack of time with the website crashing all last night and then writing all this morning. Get all that content back up. Let's see here. Could Eric Comrie be a possible target from the Jets? It's something I thought of as well, Eric. If the Penguins might want some goaltending depth. Very possible. I don't think that would cost a great deal, but we'll see. That's if giant capital I, giant capital F, maybe two Fs on that if they start getting into that, I think you could see something along those lines for the Penguins. Let's see. Let's see here. Wow. Mutation says that he would trade Phil Kessel. Seems a bit slower this year. I didn't say it. We'll leave it at that. Hey, Train Fan 25, welcome back. What did you think of Pettersson's first game as a Penguin? I thought if I had done the report card last night, I would have given Pettersson an A. His gaps were very good. He makes these little touch passes ahead to the forwards. He made one to Brian Rust that was just pillowy soft, and I think I gasped. I was sitting amongst the scouts last night, and I think I heard some other oohs and ahs at a couple of Pettersson's just silky smooth up passes. So it's not something that really draws a lot of attention. Just take a peek at that, too. The little things, Pettersson's hockey IQ is exceptionally high, it appears. He really reads the game very well. I can't believe that Anaheim would give him up for a prospect that only has 4 goals in 40-some games. Anaheim must really like Daniel Sprong because I know they've got other defensemen, rookies, and prospect defensemen in Anaheim. I would have, from what I saw, Pettersson might be that sneaky guy who doesn't have the pedigree. He was a second-round pick back in 2014. But he might that guy who just turns out to be a solid guy his entire career, heralded or not. Chris asks, we keep hearing the Pens window is open for the next 3 years. What's your take on this? And when or if those reboot would happen? No, 3 years is too long from what I see with this team. I think this year is the last good chance for the Penguins core. I just don't have a good feeling about next year. Now, that could change. Another trade, and suddenly it is a 3 or 4 year window again. Although I don't think I'm watching what these young players are doing, Chris. I'm watching the McKinnons and the Rantanens, and I'm watching the McDavids and the Matthews and the Eichels. And I just don't know how much longer the Penguins' top two will be so great. It happened quickly for the Red Wings' top two, Datsuk and Zetterberg. So maybe that goes back to embracing their gritty style of play. Because certainly Crosby is the best grinder that ever lived, ever will live. If Malkin embraces that and uses his skill for good instead of evil, or should I say evil, maybe the Penguins do get a couple more years. And Chris Letang, maybe I should spank a lot of you, because Letang just took an absolute beating social media-wise Saturday after the Flyers game. And it wasn't just that Letang maybe had a bad game or so. It's that, my God, some of you were just trying him on crimes that he never committed 5 years ago. Good Lord, a bit of context. Chris Letang has been level 9, level 10 this entire year. I would put him on my Norris ballot. Yeah, he's been that good for the Penguins. And last night, I think he had a little something to prove. Chris Letang hears you, by the way. Maybe he doesn't right now. Maybe last year he finally learned to tune it out. But he hears you. He hears social media. He hears the media. He knows when we write something good or bad about him. And he definitely had a little something to prove last night. That first goal that he set up, danced around two Avalanche defenders before he banked it off Gensel's skates into the net. That was something pretty. I wish, for the love of God, for the life of me, I could rip that personal, that cult of personality away from the Penguins fan base. I wish I could just rip that away from so many of you. Because I hate that so much of Penguins fandom is based on the back of the jersey. Very soon here, there's going to have to be an about face. Chicago began that transition last year. And my buddy Mark Lazarus just tore into people with a couple epic Twitter rants. It's time to begin appreciating what you've had right now. And there's going to be some bad games and some rough patches and some bad moments. But to personally tear down and tear down one of the core players like some people did Saturday night, Sunday, just insane. And the way you tear down Jack Johnson, too. Stop that. That's, I think the Penguins are starting to getting the Penguins know as well, because they've made a point to defend Jack Johnson subtly or not so subtly in Mike Sullivan's case a few times this year. What else we got here? Kurt, as long as the Pens have Sid, they have a chance. I don't care if he is 40. Players like him just know how to get it done. I'm not going to argue too much with that, Kurt. I think it's everybody else. How much longer is Chris Letang going to have that step and that dynamism? How much longer will Malkin have that dynamic stick handling and the ability to do what he does? I think those are my two questions. And quite frankly, Matt Murray is a big question in terms of the Penguins' window as well. As they sit right now, Jari isn't ready. I think we still presume that Casey DeSmith's ceiling is pretty close to where he is now, although, hell, he could break right through that and prove us all wrong. He's been doing that since he was a freshman at New Hampshire. I think someone told me, some of his family told me that he was 7th on their depth chart when he got to New Hampshire and wound up in net in his freshman year. That's Casey DeSmith. Exotic Farmer. What's good, Dan? Well, I am. This rotten holy sweater is good. Here, I want to get to your comment, though. I'm going to go ahead and claim the JJ has been pretty sound defensively. You are correct. And for a little while now, actually, he's been playing way better than in the beginning. Oh, sure. Look, the first, in preseason, I think the Penguins learned that Olli Maatta, Jack Johnson did not work. Oh, was that pairing just brutal. I mean, absolutely terrible. And they found themselves together again in the regular season, and it was just a debacle. Now, Maatta has struggled with a few defense partners. By the way, side note, Olli Maatta had his best game of the season last night. Blocking shots. He was quick last night. He was really good. Maatta had a little fire last night. Okay, back to Jack Johnson. Yeah, getting comfortable when the real bullets started to fly and finding the right partner. But since those first handful of games, Johnson has been a lockdown defender. He has cleared his net. He has made it very difficult for opponents. Now, the forwards, he's been on the ice. You can't say the same. And so many of those goals. I love it when critics hate the plus-minus when you praise somebody or when it doesn't fit their agenda. He's a minus 13 and getting worse. Or is it minus 9, 11, whatever it is. Yeah. So many of those, almost half of those came in one game, first of all. And second of all, have you seen the Penguins forwards play defense? Because Johnson is a second or third pairing guy, he's not on the ice often with the Crosby line, which has been the most responsible, best Penguins line through the course of the year. He's been on the ice a lot of times with the Penguins' second line, which is not so defensively responsible. Justin agrees that Letang is a Norris candidate. Hey, look, I give that to you all to spread the word. You really do. Norris Trophy, like Hart Trophy, the fans get a say. Even if they don't get a vote, they get a say. And by the way, while we're talking about says, if you could, do me a favor. Pittsburgh Hockey Now had actually reached top 3 in Google rankings before the last 2 days of crashes, which just broke my heart. Absolutely killed me. It dropped our ranking again. I mean, for a standalone like us, the little guy, to bust ahead of the newspapers, or at least one of the newspapers and the establishment, was huge for us. It was so good that we did. We crashed local server company. Need your help? Do me a favor. Hop on to Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Share your favorite article with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever it might be. Really use a lot of those links to get our ranking back into that top 3. I'll be writing like a fiend over the next week, 2 weeks to get back to where we were. You may notice just a lot of content from us, and that's the way you have to do it. Shelly Anderson at practice today. I'll be cracking the whip on her to make sure she turns out a few articles today before too late in the afternoon, so you can read them before you go home from work as well. Oh, believe me. Medina says, I don't look like a zombie, so it didn't really kill me. Oh, believe me. I sat in the Penguins press room last night after the game, typing my post-game article. We had it up for like 5-10 minutes. We thought it was fixed. I damn near flipped a giant lunch table. I just stormed. I literally walked home last night. Freezing cold. Just stormed home. paced around my house, wrote a couple articles for this morning in Word, had them ready to go. So when we finally got everything up late last night, credit my business partner, Joe Staggerwald, who's the IT guy, for just getting creative and getting everything back going. I don't know that I've been that angry in quite some time. All right, so it's after 1 o'clock. We appreciate you all checking us out. Last call. I'll give you 30 seconds to pop your questions here on the message board while I point out our lovely sponsors, like the Vanna White, Beaver County Auto, great Dodge and Chrysler dealership, and they've got everything else up in Beaver County as well. You will pay less if you make the drive up there. You will pay less if you make the drive up there, and let them know that we sent you. They're big Pitt folks up there, and they have treated us just like royalty. They could have said, hey, come back to us in a year and show us how you're doing on that little YouTube thing, but they stepped forward before this was anything. And if you like what we do and you're buying a car in the next couple months, do me a favor and check them out. Leaf Dog says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Yes, sir, the hotter the fire, the harder the steel. I will tell you, Leaf Dog, with what we've gone through, with what I've gone through over the last couple of years with Pittsburgh hockey now the steel is pretty sharp. And I'll leave it at that. So I appreciate everybody hopping on the chat today. Appreciate all of you. Check out Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Shelly Anderson will have coverage from practice. We'll be doing some videos as news breaks. Also, that will be on the website, too. We'll talk again real soon, kids. Until then, have fun.